So this is the only video you need to watch if you want to learn how to make a Roy Rogers mocktail at home. My name is Ron Verpin. I'm a full-time medical doctor and I've been home bartending for about 6 years now. During that time, I've learned how to make over 150 different cocktails and I've thrown over 60 cocktail parties. And I teach other busy professionals how to make cocktails at home. And in this video, I'm going to be going over how to make the Roy Rogers, which is has a very special place in my heart because it's the first ever mocktail recipe that I learned. And it's one of the mocktails that I've made countless times, time and time again at a lot of my different parties over these past 6 years of home bartending. And I think the Roy Rogers is a great first mocktail to learn because it's extremely simple. And oftentimes you have these two ingredients, a grenadine and cola, just sitting around in your fridge. So you don't have to specially plan for making this as a mocktail. A lot of times you'll just have these ingredients around. So it's a great mocktail to have in your repertoire, to have in your arsenal, so that when you have guests that come to your parties that don't drink for whatever reasons, health reasons, religious reasons, maybe they just have to get up early the next day for family or work or some other obligations, whatever the reason may be, a lot of people are not going to be drinking as much, and it's great to have high quality mocktails in your repertoire. And I think the Roy Rogers is really a great place to start because, like I said, it's very simple. You oftentimes have these two ingredients, and it's one of the rare cocktails or mocktails that contain just two ingredients. And don't let that fool you. I think despite the fact that it only has two ingredients, I think it's an amazing, delicious, complex, high-quality mocktail. I think you should all learn how to make it as soon as possible. So let's get right into making that mocktail. It calls for just these two ingredients, which are going to be grenadine and cola. Now for grenadine, I've gone with Liber & Co. here. Really, Liber & Co. and Liquid Alchemist are my two favorite syrup companies. I almost use these two brands exclusively. I don't really go with any other brands. And I think they're both great for grenadine and for a number of other different syrups out there. So really, when it comes to looking for your grenadine, go with either Liber & Co. or Liquid Alchemist. I think both are great options. And then next up for the cola, I actually made the Roy Rogers with a number of different colas over the years. I've used different Pepsi products. I've used Coke, Diet Coke, Coke Zero, flavored Coke, all these different types of sodas. And I think that you should go with whatever your favorite cola is. But for me personally, I really like Diet Coke in this recipe. I think the grenadine adds a lot of sweetness, and I find that when I use Coke or Pepsi or something like that, it tends to be a little bit too sweet. So that's why I like to use Diet Coke. It doesn't have as much sweetness as Coke because it doesn't really have any type of sugar. So I think this really is that great middle ground for me. For those of you, everyone has different flavor profiles. Some people might think this cocktail is even better with Coke. And I think there's really no wrong option. You can go with Coke, Pepsi, Diet Coke, Coke Zero, Cherry Coke, RC Cola, really any type of cola. Just go with whatever your favorite is. But for me personally, I like to use the Diet Coke here. And for the exact measurements, this drink is going to call for half an ounce of grenadine and then 6 ounces of whatever cola you're going to be using. This is a highball cocktail. We're going to be building it directly into the glass. And I like to use my sandwich method. For those of you that are familiar with the channel, you'll definitely remember the sandwich method. But really, for those of you that are not as familiar or just want a quick refresher, what the sandwich method entails is that for whenever you make a highball cocktail, you want to pour half of the carbonated ingredient first into the glass, then the non-carbonated ingredient or ingredients, and then the other half of the carbonated ingredient on top. What this allows is for that carbonated ingredient to sandwich the other ingredients to basically form the bread of a sandwich. And what that allows is for the carbonation, the soda, the effervescence, the bubbles to really travel throughout the entire drink, to really effortlessly flow throughout the entire drink, as opposed to just layering on the top or just layering on the bottom. So that's how we're going to build this cocktail. As I mentioned, it's going to call for 6 ounces of cola. So we're going to start with the first 3. And before we do that, let's go ahead and put our ice into the glass. I really like to start always with 3 ice cubes when I'm using a highball glass like this. But you may have room for a 4th one later. We'll see. So let's start with the first 3 ounces of cola. There's 2 ounces. And then there's the 3rd ounce. Then this drink is going to call for a half ounce of grenadine. Doesn't sound like much, but the half ounce of grenadine really does a lot for this cocktail. All right, there we have the half ounce of grenadine. And then now for the final 3 ounces of your cola. There's the first 2. And then 1 more ounce. I think we do have room for the 4th ice cube, so I'm just gonna add that on top here. Get a good nice wash line up to the top. And there you have it, the Roy Rogers mocktail. Cheers. So it sounds like a simple basic cola, but adding that ½ ounce of grenadine really does a lot to increase the complexity of the cocktail. It really brings a lot of, grenadine, I think of it basically as a pomegranate syrup, so it brings a lot of that more savory sweetness that pomegranate tends to lend to drinks, and grenadine lends to drinks. And it really adds that to this cola. It's a great complement to cola, and that's why the Roy Rogers, I think, is an amazing mocktail. I think you should definitely learn this as soon as possible and add it to your repertoire, because you're going to have guests at your parties that don't drink for whatever reason, personal, family, work related, all these different types of reasons. So it's great to have quality mocktails in your repertoire, and I think this is a great place to start. So that's why I highly recommend learning the Roy Rogers. Anyways, that's all I have for today's video. If you found the video helpful, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I like to do 2 styles of videos on this channel. The first one will be like this one, where I do a tutorial showing you all how to make a specific cocktail or specific mocktail, as in the case of this video. And then the second style video will be talking head style, where I go over different tips and tricks, share stories from my own journey, things like that I hope will help you guys become better home bartenders. And finally, if you really want to take home bartending even more seriously, I actually have a paid community on School.com. That'll be the first link in the description below. Thank you. Cheers.